Well, welcome back, everyone, to I Am Nylis, and we are back for episode number 4. Wow, we're just trucking along, aren't we? So just little admin things to take care of. You can find us also, by the way, on Facebook at facebook.com/IamNylis, or you can send us emails at info@IamNylis.com, or now new, hot off the press, we have at IamNylis, all one word, on Twitter. So we do have our Twitter account up and running. Also, Nylis is spelled Nylis, in case you didn't know that by now. Well, you could be a new listener, so we're going to get rolling into things here in a minute, and we're going to talk about some big things on, it's that time of year, graduation, parents that have kids that are graduating high school, also the gig economy. I'm going to talk a little bit about Uber this time. Again, there's a big rollout in the state of South Dakota, so I want to talk a little bit about that. And also, there's another surprise topic towards the end. So, we'll be back after the break, and see you shortly. Every day, we have the ability and opportunity to create a more accepting world by actively coming together and living inclusively. Even small acts of inclusion can have a big impact and make others feel loved and accepted. Because most people don't see themselves as part of the problem, they don't recognize that they can be part of the solution. Before anything else, we're all human. Start a conversation and create a deeper connections. Consider whose voices are and are not represented. Use inclusive, appropriate, and respectful language. As my grandmother used to say, respect those, and they'll respect you. Learn how you can come together at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by the Ad Council. Welcome back, everybody, to I Am Nylis. Yes, like to throw a little plug in there for one of our sponsors, US-specialties.com. They got some great products out there, caps and flags and some other stuff. Go check them out. That would be great. So, rolling right into I Am Nylis segment. Yes, I mentioned that in the intro that I wanted to talk about graduation. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. If you haven't gone through this ordeal, I mean, festivities that happen, yeah, it's quite interesting. I did go through this, the wife and I, we have 7 children, but only 2 of those children have gone to American high schools. The others all went through the German school systems. So these are the only 2 that we had to go through the graduation. The one last year was pretty painless. I mean, yes, it was painful, and you know you're prepping for different things, and like the real big one, of course, is a graduation party, and what day you're gonna have it, and when this is gonna happen, and you know who's gonna come and who's being invited, and what kind of food you're going to do. I mean, there's just a slew of things. And, of course, the child wants to have a theme of their own. So, that also plays into it. And we decided last year that it would probably be best if we had the graduation party at our house. And some parents have warned me about this. They said, don't do that. Just rent a place, go over there, do your quick setup. After it's over, do your tear down, and you're over and done with. But no, I decided that my garage would be a good place to put the food and set it up there and put a tent out back to do all their other little activities and have some games in the backyard. That was supposed to work out pretty good, and it did actually. It did work out. There was a stream of people coming and going, and games and all sorts of stuff. So that kind of worked out. But this year, the weather doesn't. Last year, the weather was fine. It was sunny and everything, and so we were good to go. But this year, it looks like we're going to get rain. And, of course, we decided, well, let's just do it again. What else are you going to do, right? Not going to do that. So now we're all kind of stressing on the weather forecast here coming up for the weekend is 60% chance of rain. And if you're in South Dakota, you know what that means. That means thunderstorm, maybe even some hail, who knows. Maybe even a tornado warning or two. Yeah, that's we're getting into that part of the year where that kind of stuff can happen. So this ought to be interesting. We're still got a tent, but we got it on the side of the house, or side of the garage, actually. So that whole thing is going to work, and we're going to go through that. This is the last child, so we're trying to do our best with this one. But we'll see how it all rolls out. I think the weather is going to be the big factor, and everybody, stressing about that. And one of the things that really kind of hits you as you're going through this and all this stress and trying to get all this ready and trying to figure out what to do, you sit back and you think and you're like, wait a minute, this child over the summer is going to spread their wings a little bit, and then come August, she's going off to college. Not going too far, I think. I think she's planning on going to USD. That's the plan. And so that's okay. That's she's not going to be too far. But the other one that graduated last year has her own apartment. So technically, I guess that does make us empty nesters. After all these years, it's going to be interesting. We're going to enjoy it, actually. I think we're looking forward to it for the first few months. I'm sure then it might get a little bit old. We don't have any we have grandchildren. We have 5 grandchildren, but the closest grandchild, I think, lives 1,600 miles away. So we don't have grandchildren to pop over and spend the night and all that kind of stuff. It's not that easy to get them over here. But, yeah, going through the whole graduation from the beginning to the end, it's quite an ordeal. And anybody that's gone through it, you know what I mean. Anybody that hasn't gone through it yet, it'll be fun. Just take it with stride, take it all with a grain of salt, and just go with the flow. It's going to happen anyway. And whether you want it to or not, it's happening. They're going to graduate, and the party's going to happen, and yeah, you're going to deal with the catering or food or whatever, and it's all going to happen. You're going to have tons of extras. You're going to have tons of food left over, and the kid's not going to want to eat it, and you're going to be stuck trying to figure out what to do with it. So, anyway, boy, yeah. So, I think that's enough on the old graduation topic, and about ready to move in after the break. We're going to move into the next segment, and we'll be talking about gig economy after the break. So we'll talk to you after the break. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're going to roll into our next segment here after a second. I just want to remind everybody that if you have some feedback for us, that would be great. Really like to have some constructive criticism. Still pretty new at this, working on it. And you can reach me at info@iamnylis.com, all one word. Nylis spelled Nylis. Twitter @IamNylis, or Facebook page, facebook.com/IamNylis, all one word. All right, let's roll into the gig economy section here. This segment, I'm going to talk about Uber a bit. I didn't didn't plan on talking about Uber, but big things have been happening in the South Dakota region. Well, South Dakota itself, I think I talked about this before. South Dakota, until October 2017, was the last state to get any rideshare whatsoever. And Lyft came in October 2017. Almost a year before that, Uber was going to come into South Dakota, and I don't know the official reasons, but they backed out. Some say it's because they didn't want to collect sales tax and had an argument with the state government. Whatever the case be, I don't want to spread anything because I don't have any facts to back that up. So basically they didn't come, and then a year later Lyft came. So now we're hearing that Uber has acquired their sales tax license, their business license to operate in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and paid their fee. I think they've paid their fee. That's what the city's reporting, that they've done all that. They've talked to the airport. We don't know if they've got their permit to work with the airport yet. We think that might be what's kind of holding things up. So I kind of wanted to talk about Uber and rolling out in the last state in the union. This is quite an amazing feat, or depressing, depending how you look at it, I guess, that it took so long for them to get here. Now, some of us drivers, we've been out there driving Uber in neighboring states. There's some guys that went north, as far north as North Dakota. There's some people that are they're licensed. They have a Minnesota license and a Minnesota license plate and driver's license from Minnesota, and they can drive in Minnesota. They could drive even in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul. But those of us living in South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, we can't drive in Minnesota because they have a rule of you have to have that license plate in from the state and driver's license, similar to Nevada. And I think there's some other places that are like that as well. So back to South Dakota, where a lot of us drivers were wanting to get experience. So we started driving down in Sioux City, which isn't too far. It's an hour and 10 minutes or so down there. We started driving down in Sioux City, Iowa, to get some experience with driving with both. And even some of us have gone all the way down to Omaha or Des Moines, Iowa, some of the other areas over there, Okoboji. There's just all sorts of places that people have went to drive Uber and get some experience. So one of the things that with this rollout that's interesting is the timing. You know, companies like to hit it big at some point in time. Uber just had their IPO, and I thought maybe they were going to do it prior to the IPO, but it looks like the way it's looking to me, this is my opinion, that they're going to try to roll out, excuse me, right before Memorial Day, because Memorial Day is just a week and a half, 2 weeks away, not even. Actually, yeah, it is 2 weeks away. So they're probably going to roll out for that big Memorial Day weekend. So it ought to be interesting when they hit the ground running. There is a lot of drivers in the Sioux Falls area driving Lyft right now. We have a Facebook page that has probably 600 registered drivers, and that's a small portion of the actual registered drivers in the area. Pretty positive, because there's always new drivers daily. But we do have some Uber groups. I want to talk, since I'm talking about Uber, I want to bring up, there's an Uber Drivers Sioux Falls Facebook group for the drivers for Uber. And there's a Uber Sioux Falls for a group for drivers and riders. Anybody can get in there and get some information, find out what's going on, these kind of things, events. And that'll be good to get that information out for anybody taking Uber. And a lot of the drivers are really hoping that the airport is an okay place, kind of, for Lyft, but it really doesn't have as much as I think a lot of drivers think it should. But there are a lot of drivers that come in and they pull out their Uber app, they try to get an Uber, and it's not there. And there's very small signs in the airport so that the people will sit there and see, oh, they have Lyft here, and then they'll try Lyft. Or they'll just try Lyft because they're used to being able to flip back and forth. But there's some people that I've talked to later that I've picked up and taken them back that they didn't know right away. So first thing they did is I see taxis sitting there, and they hop in a taxi and take it to their hotel or whatever. So nothing wrong with them using taxis, and I have no problems with that. I'm all for competition, and if we can't supply it or they don't have the ability to get a ride with us, then why not take a taxi? So, but back to Uber itself, experience-wise, any of the drivers that have been driving a while, I haven't got a lot of rides. I'm just still a newbie on Uber. I haven't even got 400 yet. I'm real close to 400 rides with Uber. But some of the experiences that I think some of these drivers are going to be having to get used to with Uber is they're going to have to get used to the fact that trying to switch around. Some of them have Androids, and they can use something like Maestro. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, but it's a common app to flip back and forth, and it kind of shuts down one app when you get a ping on the other one. And I've heard a lot of things about it, and I'm an Apple guy, so I would never use an app like that to auto switch. I just trust myself. I'll miss rides, or I'll forget it on and get a ping on the other one, and then I got to decline the ride and shut my app down. But I've been in real busy times where I got a ping and immediately got a ping in the other one, and I'm trying to shut it down. It's almost impossible because you're getting them just back to back. That's happened to me before. And in other markets, other than Sioux Falls hasn't started yet. So, yeah. So some of the things that I think that's one of the things that people need to watch out for if they're going to be driving. Riders, Uber, it looks a little different. You'll have to get used to it if you've never used it before and you want to try it out. I will put a selfish plug out there for my personal code, but if you're new to driving or you're new to riding and you want to save some money or make some extra money, you can use my code. My personal code is Nylis, of course, Nylis R3UE. So that's Nylis R3UE. So that code, oh, by the way, that code also works with Lyft. So, and, but anyway, yeah, if you're a rider and you're trying it out for the first time, it is a little bit different. There are some things there where they notify you that the driver is coming, just like they do with Lyft. Some of that is quite similar. You're going to get used to it pretty quick. As a driver, we got used to it pretty quick too. There are some things that were different. Lyft was pushing buttons to accept the ride, and Uber swiping to accept the ride or to say you're there. There is one difference, though, with the driver app that is a little annoying with the Lyft. Uber. Lyft does it when you hit that you arrive, then you see or can see the address where the person's going to. With Uber, when you arrive, it says that it notified the person, but doesn't give you any more information. Only when you swipe it to say you're starting the ride does it give you the information and then go into a navigation mode and allow you to navigate to where you're going. So you really don't know where you're going. Even while you're sitting there waiting for the person, you don't know where you're going. And if you swipe that and start the ride and they cancel on you, you don't get a cancellation fee. Or they don't show up, you're going to have to cancel it, and then you're not going to get a cancellation fee potentially. So you have to wait until the person doesn't show. And that's another thing. If you're a rider, you really need to get out there. When you order that ride, you have to know that we're probably, if it says we're 1 or 2 minutes away, we're literally 1 or 2 minutes away. If it says we're 5 minutes away, we might only be 3, and it calculated that we were 5. So you have to be ready when you order rides. That's one of the big pet peeves of a lot of drivers, is people aren't waiting for you or aren't ready, and you call them, there's a minute left before they time out, and they say, yeah, I'm coming. Oh, I didn't know you were there. I'm coming. Well, the apps do warn you that we're there. And some markets that I've driven in, the people are trained pretty well. They know that when the timer clicks off, we're pulling out. And we're going on to the next person, because there's lots of people that need rides. And if you don't get out there, 1, you're going to have to pay a cancellation fee, and 2, you're holding up, other people that need rides. So anyway, I think that's quite a bit about Uber. This show, I didn't mean to talk so much about Uber in this show, but I just thought it was pretty interesting. We're getting Uber any day now. Drivers are actually checking the app almost every few hours just to see if they turned it on. Riders are checking the rider app, everything else. So yeah, it'll be interesting, and we'll talk about that more as the time goes on. So yeah, let's take a break, and we'll be back after the break with the next segment, which I haven't told you all what it is yet. So we'll go into that after the break. Well, welcome back, everyone. And we're going to open this segment, and I have no clue what I'm going to call this segment. So I'm just going to call it Facebook, actually, just because that's what we're going to talk about for a few minutes. We're going to talk about Facebook and the impending breakup, or the people are talking that it should break up. And we'll talk about all that in a minute, but I want to put in a plug for one of our sponsors there, us-specialties.com. You need to go out and check out their hats and flags and other products that they're getting all the time, and try to see if you can't find something that you like out there. And also, we can be found on facebook.com/IamNylis, or at IamNylis on Twitter, or info@IamNylis.com. Nylis, of course, is spelled Nylis. So let's roll into this. This is something that's been just hitting the news lately, and it set me back a little bit. I was like, wait a minute. They're talking about trying to break up, or saying we should break up Facebook. And there was even some older gentlemen, they were comparing that to the AT&T breakup back in the day, Ma Bell, when they broke up Ma Bell, and they were talking about how beneficial it was and things like that. And after doing some research and seeing what some of the people are saying, it seems like the political parties are a little bit of infighting amongst themselves too. I don't, like I said, I don't really want to get into politics of things, but it does have a bearing here a little bit. I was seeing that some of the Democrats had one was saying one thing, one was saying the other. So some are for, some are against, and I think over on the Republican side, it seems to be similar, and some of the independents, I don't know, they seem to be waving with the wind to figure out what might sound good. I have not found any real, truly real reason. I have not found any, what I would say is a good reason to break something like Facebook up. I mean, yes, it's getting big, and they're buying up things, and they're going all over the place, and that's can be a little scary, but still, the whole purpose of being in business, I think, is to really go out there and get, as much of your market as you can. And I know Facebook bought like WhatsApp and Instagram, and that they have a ton of other social media, little small stuff, and they some people say they have probably a monopoly on social media, but I don't know. They don't have a total monopoly, but they're sure darn getting in the right direction. That's for sure. Some of the things that we noticed out there, there's a lot of opinions on that, and since this is my show, I'm going to give you my opinion. I really think that government needs to back off of some businesses, and sometimes they need to sit back and make sure that if they want to protect us as citizens, that's the right thing in some ways. But unfortunately, some people can use that to political advantage or disadvantage, and most of the time, things like that, when they start screaming for breakups and things like that, it's politicized, and that's where I think the only way that should even be a consideration is if it truly is doing something detrimental to the population in some way. I think anything that smells of political infighting or political jostling or political maneuvering, that stinks to high heaven. I don't care which direction you're aiming. It just isn't right for people to start messing about. And it sets bad precedents. And I know, if I remember correctly, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember if it was I think it was way back, Ma Bell was like the 70s, I think. Not sure if it was that far back, but I do remember a lot of that. Actually, looking up on my trusty internet, it was January 8th, 1982, that it was mandated that it should break up. So, yeah, that wasn't actually that long ago. I mean, okay, for some of you might not even have been born then, but for those of us that have been around a little while, I graduated high school in '83, so I was a junior at the time when it was mandated to break up, and I do remember everybody was screaming and yelling it was going to be painful, but to tell you the truth, that breakup made sense. It truly made sense, and there's a lot of innovation that we can go back and see that happened because of this in the communications industry and everything else, and it was bound to happen with that. So in some ways, it might be bound to happen with big companies like Facebook or other things, or it's going to be a fact of, they fall on a little bit harder times and they start selling off pieces here and there. There's always that possibility. The market could correct itself. There's a lot of things that can happen. So I think at this moment in time, I think it's politically driven and motivated, and everybody is pushing this for some agenda that really I wish they wouldn't do. It's just, but hey, we can't do too much other than vote, right? And so that gives me a little spin off on that. The only thing political per se that I do push is everybody needs to get out there and vote. You have no reason to bitch and moan if what's going on out there if you didn't vote. If you vote, you have the right to bitch and moan all you want about one thing or the other, and yeah, you need to exercise your right to vote. I don't care if you just turned 18 years old, you need to get out there and register and exercise that vote. And that is something that, not enough people are doing. If you take a look at how many people voted, well, I don't want to go off on a tangent there, so we'll leave that for some other deep, in-depth discussion another time. But back to Facebook, I really don't think, and my final word on that is I don't think they should they should break them up. I don't even think people should be talking about this right now. We have many other things that are affecting this country in a lot of ways, and all of that needs to be looked at first. This is just a side distraction. It's just something that someone is driving for their own cause, and I don't think there's enough behind it to truly warrant all this news cycles that have been happening. But that's my take on it, because I am Nylis. Yeah, and that's my take. So, all right, we're going to move on and wrap this up after the break, and we'll be back shortly. Well, welcome back, everyone, and let's wrap this up. I think we touched quite a bit on graduation and the whole tradition and the way things go. And parents, I really wish you all good luck. Hopefully you're crossing your fingers for me too. This last graduation and the future of empty nesting, that ought to be good. And Uber rollout. We talked about Uber rollout and here in South Dakota, and that's going to be something exciting over the next couple of weeks. See how that all turns out, and I'll report on that and let people know how things are going there. And that'll be something to watch. I still want to plug. Do not, if you're a little guy, I would not go out there and jump into IPOs of the gig economy right now. Us little guys just can't afford our hard-earned cash to be put into that right now. That's my personal opinion. I'm not a finance guy. And last but not least, Facebook and the breakup and what people are saying about that. We talked a bit about that, and I hope everybody just takes everything with a grain of salt, as I always say. And I really appreciate everybody out there that's listening, and I'm getting more and more listeners all the time. I really appreciate it. I hope I'm talking about stuff you want to hear. And if you agree with me, you don't agree with me, get on out there and send me an email. I am at info@iamnylis.com and at iamnylis on Twitter. And, of course, facebook.com/IamNylis. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Well, it was bound to happen. Only 4 shows in, and I've got to retract a little bit of what I said in this episode number 4. I did have a listener point out that Uber is not in all 50 states, even when it gets to South Dakota. I didn't do my research, and I apologize for that. It seems that it's in approximately 43 states without South Dakota. So there again, I had made a mistake. I'm sorry, everyone. I just went with the wave. Rode the wave. Everybody was talking about how South Dakota was the last one. But I tell you, in my personal opinion, it sure feels like we're the last one. All right. Well, sorry, everyone.